All right, everyone. It is 3:02. We want to get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. This is our fourth time overall, third time in 2022, where we are partnering C-Suite Coach with Black Ambition to provide free resources for this community, and really, really excited for what we have to discuss today. I want to, before we get started, kick it over to Black Ambition to share some opening remarks. We have the amazing lead, Christine Joseph, who can give us some insights on things that are going on in the world of Black Ambition Prize. So, Christine, I'd love to kick it over to you.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I've had some technical difficulties in the last few seconds, so hopefully you hear me just fine. It's really, really a pleasure to be on this call. It's always a pleasure to be on this call with all of you, especially when Angelina is leading a wonderful workshop and our guest speakers. So first, I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Christine. I'm the community manager for Black Ambition. If you have hopped on this C-Suite workshop before, then we are not strangers, we are friends. And if you're new here, not to worry. Black Ambition Prize is Pharrell Williams' nonprofit organization committed to providing access and capital to Black, Latinx, and HBCU founders. And it is my utmost joy to say congratulations to those who have applied. Congratulations to those who have already gotten notified about being a semifinalist. And thank you guys so much for coming through and pouring in and putting yourselves out there. That is such a big deal. And I mean, from the bottom of my heart and from the bottom of Black Ambition's ecosystem and ethos, we are really, really proud of you for putting yourselves out there. Shout out to C-Suite for putting us out there and making sure that you all knew about the prize and that you went forward and applied. So the prize competition has closed, but I do want to make sure that you guys stay in touch, stay updated. So go ahead and sign up for the Black Ambition newsletter if you haven't already. I'll drop the link so that you guys can do that a little bit later on, because we continuously do regional pitch competitions. We actually have one coming up, so stay tuned for that. And then outside of regional competitions, we're consistently dropping really, really good gems and resources and workshops just like this one. So that's my spiel. That's all I have for today. And if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll drop my link on here as well. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the workshop.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. It's always a pleasure to partner with organizations that are mission aligned and us helping to get more Black and Latinx founders resources that they need to scale their business is very much aligned with our mission. So we have just under an hour and a half with you, and we have a pretty packed agenda, and we're really excited. I see many of you dropping your businesses in the chat. That's exactly what we want to see. We want to know who's in the room, where you're from, and what you're hoping to get out of today. So I am going to take over the screen and share some slides and remind you of what our agenda will be for today. So when you saw the notice, there are probably two things that captured your attention. One, we're going to have a brief discussion around CEO burnout and some resources. There is a lot of challenges associated with running a business. And as has been said often, if everyone could do it, it would be a lot easier. If it was easy, everyone would do it, but you're doing it. And so we're going to talk about the resources that you need to support you in that. And then you may have also seen that we are going to have a fireside chat with Rakia Finley from Copper and Bind Studios. Rakia is an amazing founder. She's just phenomenal. I first heard her story last year, Martha's Vineyard, and she sold one of her first companies that she built, and as a software expert has gone on to work with business owners who are looking to prepare themselves for sale, sometimes in creating software for them, and in doing so has helped founders receive on average 27 million when being acquired. So really excited to hear from Rakia. She's also an investor, and I'll share more about her bio later. So I always want to introduce myself. I'm Angelina Darrisaw. I'm the founder and CEO of C-Suite Coach. We are a firm that focuses in talent development, offering operational support for diversity programs, and we have one-to-one coaching for enterprises as well. So over 30 coaches, primarily of color, Black and Latino, male and female, and really, really excited about the work that we're doing. So in that growth journey, it's been a lot of new learnings for me, as when I started my company, I was a team of one. Now with full-time employees as well as contractors, we have over 44 people that we're working with monthly. So being a leader, pouring into myself, that theme of secure your own oxygen mask before helping others has been really important for me. And you all are already doing it. You're putting in the chat where you're joining from, who you are, your business, your website. Love to see it, because you never know where your next opportunity is. But why don't you also go ahead and throw in the chat your best self-care tips and what you're hoping to get out of today's session. That is what we want to know from you. So I'll give you just a second to do that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so I'll let that keep coming in. But yes, we want to talk about CEO burnout, and then I'll give you a couple of tips on resiliency and working on your growth mindset, why it's important for leaders to focus on self-care. And then we're going to be talking about how to prepare your exit with Rakia Finley. Really, really excited. Again, Rakia focuses on how do you build that strategy that makes your business attractive, and how do you articulate your business value when you are preparing your business for sale or investments. Some of us are getting to that point maybe where we've been doing it for so long, we're looking to think about what's next. So hopefully you're not thinking about what's next because you're burned out. Hopefully it's just time to think about the next chapter. So looking forward to that conversation later. Now, let's talk about CEO burnout. And I always love a good quote. Gabby Douglas says, hard days are the best because that's when champions are made. But they don't always feel like the best, right? When you're going through it, when you're in that season, it can feel really challenging. And so it is important to know, though, that what do they say? We survived 100% of our worst days. And it's a matter of, when you're in those hard moments, recognizing for yourself that it's temporary. Earlier today, I was in another conversation and somebody mentioned, I'm in a tough season. And even the language we use is so important. I love that that person called out, it's a season. You know what happens with seasons? They change, they shift, they come and they go. And so when we're thinking about some of the challenges we face in our business, it's important to recognize the temporary nature of some of those things and recognize things as a season. Well, I'm seeing some great things coming in the chat. We'll read some of those later. But what is a state of burnout? Right now, statistics are showing us that 66% of managers and executives are experiencing burnout. 76% are overwhelmed. Leaders are saying that they feel used up at the end of the workday, and that is a strong indicator of burnout. Also, almost half, 44% of leaders are thinking that they might want to change companies or exit or leave within the next year. And I definitely had some of those moments myself in the pandemic. Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat if you've ever just been so frustrated with what's going on with work that you're like, this may not be for me. I might need to try something new. Oh, I'm seeing some ones. Yes, I definitely had some of those moments where I was like, I built this to enjoy it, and I'm not feeling like I'm fully enjoying it. And that was really frustrating. Okay, I'm seeing that there are quite a lot of ones. So this is really important. And I think even this last season of being in the pandemic for the last couple of years has been challenging. In fact, the majority of leaders did not feel that they were effective of leading when in a virtual environment. And we have been increasingly in virtual environments in the last couple of years. So this is all important to just set the stage that there's a lot going on. And sometimes when we look at these stats, what I think is also helpful, we talk about resources, is knowing that you're not alone, knowing that you're in community. So we'll talk about some resources, but my network, I will say, has been a key part of me overcoming burnout, because when you're going through something really challenging, you're like, am I good enough? All of these thoughts come up. Am I equipped to deal with this? Can I manage this? And then you talk to another business owner and you realize you're not alone, that actually most business owners go through these different challenges and seasons as a part of running their business. So it's really important. But as we talk about leadership burnout, it's also really critical for you to recognize that burnout is something that happens with folks that work for you as well. So employees are also experiencing burnout. More than 4 in 10 say that they feel more burned out on the job today compared to a year ago. And so it's going up. We're hearing themes like the Great Resignation. And as a leader, if you're feeling it and you are tasked with creating the culture of your organization, that can be really challenging. So you have to be thinking about, how do I make sure I'm taking care of myself so I create that culture where employees on my team can thrive? If you have any tips on that, put that in the chat. I want to see what you all are doing for your teams. But it's really important to be thinking about that, that it's not just you across the board. All of us in this working environment, your employees, the members of your staff, they may be feeling this too. So how do we think about how to care for ourselves, but also those on our team? So according to an article in Harvard Business Review, there were 6 different things that they cited that were a part of what contributes to burnout. And one of those things was just too much work to do, having this feeling of constantly being overloaded with work. I don't know any small business owner, entrepreneur, startup founder who is just like, you know what, I have tons of time and capacity. If you know one of those, wow, we need the secret sauce, because I haven't seen that yet. And the reality is operating in that mode for too long can create burnout. When we're small, when we're getting started, it's important for us to be thinking about, how do we create systems so that we're not in that place of constantly feeling overloaded and burned out. Something else that comes up often is feeling like a lack of control. What if you feel like you're in that situation where it's like, I've done all the marketing I can do to try to drive more customers. I've sent out all the pitches and I'm not getting the responses I want. I've applied for all the funding and I'm not getting the funding I want. And that can create the sense of, I'm not in control. I'm doing all the right steps, but maybe I don't feel like I have the autonomy to build or to get to that next stage that I want to get into. And that's something that a lot of leaders face. Something else is feeling like the efforts aren't matching the rewards. So I'm putting all this work in. I have made no salary for a period of time because I want to give salary to employees or whatever the case might be. I've been there. Put a 1 in the chat if you've been there, or done different sacrifices to make your business run, and then you haven't seen any rewards yet. And that's challenging. And then something else, community. Who is there to support you? When I first left my full-time job 7+ years ago, working in corporate, all my circle was in corporate, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need each other. However, sometimes people in your circle who don't understand the challenges of being a small business owner may not be best equipped to help you. So it's not about losing any old friends, but it is about building a new circle of other folks who have been a part of that community, that have run businesses, that may be able to understand some of your challenges and can help you through them, and not make you feel isolated when you're going through things is really important. And then something else that can contribute to burnout is just the sense of unfair treatment, not being treated equitably, especially for Black founders, Black business owners in the space. We run up against this a lot. When we see opportunities, we're like, that are not feeling that they have equity in mind. So this is something else that can just contribute to that feeling of frustration. In fact, those same sorts of feelings of frustrations might be why some of us left our full-time jobs in the first place. And then the other piece of it is just a misalignment in values, working with partners that aren't aligned with your style, with your mission, that don't get it, that vision, that picture that you have, or share values of how you want to work, what's meaningful to you, can also drive quite a lot of frustration. Hi, I'm seeing some of your comments in the chat. Okay, great. And there are some self-care tips that are coming through, which is important. I will read those in just a couple of seconds. So One of the things that I'm commonly asked is just how do we build more resilience? How do we gain it? Well, this has been my lifelong journey because it is a challenge, right? Some of us are born more optimistic and some of us aren't. And that's one of the tools to building resilience is having a sense of optimism. Well, how do we get better at being resilient? The good news that I can share with you is that resilience is a muscle. You can build it just like you can build more toned arms by going to the gym, just like any other muscle, you can build it, right? So this is another one of my favorite quotes. You become strong by doing the things you need to be strong for. So you get better at it by practice. And those things that used to really shake me maybe 7 years ago, even 3 years ago when running a business, I realized don't shake me now. I used to cry every time I got a no from a potential client, just like weep. Okay. I'm like, wow, I tried so hard. I worked on the pitch. And now I get several no's a day and I'm so unbothered. And so that didn't happen as an overnight process, right? That just helped perspective, reframing, and also getting more comfortable putting myself out there and not being affected by that rejection, but looking at it as a learning opportunity helps. Another one for you that my mom always says is leaders do hard things. And the reality is, as the owner of your business, you are for sure a leader and you can do hard things. Awesome. Yes, I have experienced burnout, but I will just not quit. Great. So some of you threw in the chat some of your tips. I want to read a few for how you deal with burnout, and you can keep them coming. But here are some that I will read. Self-care, managing time, looking at my schedule and mapping out to the minute what I do and when. And I used to feel like I didn't have enough time as a mother, wife, and tech entrepreneur. And I really needed to manage my time. I even throw in time for relaxation. This is so key. Even calendaring in how you're going to care for yourself is key. Prioritizing exercise, sleep, and time with my family is important. Trust yourself and honor what you need in the moment. Healing sessions, spending time at the lake or outdoor in nature, 100% agree. Taking a vacation. I didn't do this for years of running my business, and I have a whole other perspective on that now. Silent retreats, detox times, physically and socially, scheduling joy. Great, great, great. Keep them coming. Read a good book. Love to see these. Okay, so I have some others that I would recommend in addition to some of the things that you shared for how we can remedy burnout. And one of those things is planning and prioritizing effectively. Are we delegating tasks? This can be really difficult as a business owner because this is your baby. This is your vision. This is that thing that you fully believe in and you want to see flourish. And handing over tasks sometimes can feel like a huge risk. But the reality is, if we don't take that risk, there's two things that happen. One, we're not setting ourselves up for scale. And that's a real challenge, right? If you want your business to grow, you have to build in systems and processes for scale. And then two, if you try to do everything, chances are you will not be doing it all well. So you want to get into that habit of delegating tasks and then planning and prioritizing effectively where you need to be. Some folks, some phrases I hear from CEOs all the time is, how do I spend my CEO time? And so when you think about your CEO time, and this is going to be one I'm throwing in the chat, I want you all to answer. You as the owner of your company, what is the function that you need to be spending most of your time on? What are some of the functions as the leader of your company? And this is different depending on what kind of CEO you are. If you're more focused on business development, then maybe the majority of your time needs to be focused there. Okay, if you're delegating, building the team, okay, great. If you're a technical founder, maybe most of your time needs to be spent iterating and developing the tech. Business development and team management, future casting, sponsors, donors, partners, so engaging those, meeting and selling the vision. So it sounds like marketing, creating. So this is something that you really want to spend time with and ask yourself. And I love that comment from someone in the chat about minute by minute, going through your calendar and looking at how your time is spent and really thinking about where should the majority of your focus be. And then what parts really require you and then what parts can be outsourced. One of the things that's really great about us being in this world where now we have what we call the gig economy. So many people are taking on part-time work and contracts. It gives you a lot of opportunity to, at a small investment, be able to outsource some of the tasks that you need. Then you want to talk about boundary setting. So one of the remedies for burnout is being very clear on your boundaries. Another momism from my mother that she will always say is no is the complete sentence. And so that means being able to establish for yourself what are the boundaries for you in your world. Being able to say no without an explanation and letting that be enough is something that's really, really important. Okay, additionally, own where you can make shifts. So this is really important because some of us struggle with feeling like we don't have all the control. And there are some cases where there will always be elements in operating a business that will be out of our control. Right now, for example, we work with a technology partner where sometimes their tech is just flawed. It has bugs. And we have a lot of our big corporate clients on that platform, and the bugs affect the client experience. And that can feel so frustrating. But we also have to own what we can control. So have we communicated with the technology partner the errors? Have we come up with a plan? What's the communication strategy? These are some of the things we have long meetings about. What can we control to make that client experience better so it doesn't result in losing the client or damaging the relationship? If something goes wrong, how do we remedy that? And those are all the pieces that we can control. Anything outside of that, you have to be comfortable knowing that you did your best with what you can control. So always keep thinking about what else can you do? Up on the top, I say, don't bring up a problem or don't bring a problem without bringing a solution, right? And that solution may not be the fix, but you want to get in that habit. Design thinking is a great way to work on this. Just iterating constantly. What else? What else can be done to create solutions? Every solution may not work, but get into that habit of coming with solutions when you identify a problem. Then I'll also say it's important to work with partners that reflect your values. So when we first kicked off, one of the things I said is I'm so happy to work with Black Ambition Prize because there's an alignment of values. And that is one of the things that has helped me personally even deal with avoiding burnout, is when I work with partners that have shared missions, shared goals, when they get it. I bring up this example all the time, but when I first started my business and we were doing some work for corporate clients, and some of the work we do is in the equity space, supporting Black and brown talent at work. I remember having a client ask me to create a natural hair guide for work appropriate styles for Black women, and just being like totally offended and needing money, being hungry. This was my very first couple months in business, wondering if I should take on that contract or not, and realize that it was so misaligned with my values. I didn't want to work with a partner like that. So yes, wow, having the willingness to walk away actually helped me create healthier scenarios for myself or feel comfortable with my work. So if you're working with partners that don't share your value system, that are unwilling for those important learnings of how to do business with you and meet you where you are, then that's going to create more chaos and confusion for you down the line. It is important for us to recognize that we do have autonomy as business owners to create the relationships and the partnerships that work for us. And it can feel sometimes, especially when you're first getting started, daunting to say no, but you don't have to say yes to everything. And the clearer you are and who you want to work with, the better you'll be mentally in the long run. And then the last thing I'll call out is also just mindset work and meditation. So a lot of what I'm talking about is building the muscles, small mind shifts that you can make when you're in moments of burnout, being able to ask yourself questions. So one of the biggest parts of coaching, if you were ever to take a training on how to be a coaching leader, is we talk about powerful question asking. And so some of those questions can be as simple as, if you see a problem, what is the solution? What could be done differently? If I had to, have I tried everything that I needed to try? getting into that practice of working on your mind when you're feeling really frustrated, being conscious of your language. This is a season. This is temporary. I won't be here forever also helps you build that habit. So, okay, I'm just looking at time. We have about 15 more minutes. So I do want to share a couple of just quick examples. I can share so many in my own career, but I'm going to move ahead. What was that? Okay, I thought I heard someone say anything. But even, for example, growing a team and growing from being a solopreneur to now being responsible for how the business operates. And even for me, one of the biggest challenges was understanding the right payroll providers, solutions, expense systems, administrative work, all became something that pretty quickly as my team was growing, I had to learn how to deal with. And then there were times where sometimes the vendors I worked with weren't good vendors or weren't supportive vendors and created really big challenges for me. That's one of the things that I dealt with. In the pandemic, for example, even moving from, we had a business where most of our work operated in person to having to do everything virtually created a lot of challenges. So those were some of the areas that I saw a lot of moments where I found myself burning out. And so the things that I had to ask myself is, there will be times where I worked with an external consultant and he made a comment to me. He's like, you always seem stressed and you're making the whole team feel stressed. And that was a big aha moment for me, where I said, wow, if I'm always seeming stressed, burnout, believe it or not, can be contagious. And so you're creating, as the leader, a lot of you put out different things, and several of you said, I'm building the team, I'm growing, I'm creating the business strategy. If you are leading a team and there are people on your team, you want to make sure that you're not creating a culture of burnout. So what can you do to avoid that for your team? Well, one, you do have to secure your own oxygen mask before helping others. So some of you said, yes, that was me when we talked about maybe not giving yourself a salary or not taking care of yourself. I want to challenge you to rethink that. If you cannot feel comfortable taking care of yourself, you're constantly going to be up against this feeling of burnout, and that will translate to the rest of your team. So you have to make sure that whether it's a salary, whether it's taking out distributions, that you're properly cared for on your own, in your own company. That's important, because otherwise, what are you doing it for? You're going to lose the motivation. Then you want to properly assess what's urgent. When I worked in corporate, I remember being at weddings, being at funerals even, and my managers constantly, I worked on a corporate strategies team, and a lot of the stuff we did felt high stakes, but it always wasn't. And having to constantly respond on my weekends, on what really was my personal time, and even critical family moments. And I realized that they were creating a false sense of urgency. Well, now you're the leader of the team. What's really urgent? Really assess that. Assess when things really need to be done. Set realistic timelines with your clients and your customers as well. This is one thing I learned from project management, and it happens in every kind of project, where there's a home renovation, a business, a tech solution, all kinds of projects. Timelines always are not what you think they will be. So when you are creating deadlines with clients, you want to add in extra time just to give yourself that buffer so that you're not putting that urgency onto your team. And then you want to create a feedback-driven culture, making sure that you are doing check-ins, that you're creating the team that maybe you wish you could have worked for when you were working for someone else, right? And respect team boundaries. Ask them how they want to be communicated with. Try to find systems that work for the whole team. And let that be an area of conversation. Maybe we can't all get on the same page day one, but let's set some goals around how do we get there. All right, and Sierra, tell you, I love a good quote. You can't focus on the bad thing. You have to focus on getting through it. So recently, someone said to me that when we are feeling really stressed, we might say things like, I have problems. But again, language, even in that, When you say you have problems, I just imagine myself as a bag lady carrying a bag of problems. It's attached to me, it's a tumor, it's unhealthy. But when we recognize that we don't have problems, we as individuals don't have them, we're facing problems. That means, again, we can get through this. We can focus on where do we go next? What's the path forward? And how do we look at from where we are now to where our goals are for the next thing? How do we get through that? All right. I want to share in just the last couple minutes a couple examples of how you can be thinking about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So here are just a couple quick examples of things that might stress us out, cause a lot of chaos and friction in our day. You're running late for a meeting perhaps, or you missed an important deadline for a client. Maybe you have a consumer facing product and you got negative feedback from the community on a social platform, like Imagine. Or you are handling a new project or task in a pandemic. We all just did that. So these are some things that can feel like catastrophic. Let's take number 2, you missed an important deadline. What's the reframe here? Go ahead and give me an example of how you can learn from this experience. We don't lose, we only have lessons. What would be a good reframe here for you? I'll look in the chat. And you can give me a reframe for any of these examples. Time management, it took longer than you anticipated. So now, for example, thank you, Leona. One of the things you can do is say, again, when I'm planning for how I'm going to approach a situation with a client, I now know that the work actually takes me X amount of time, and I'm going to plan in that extra time going forward. Exactly. Now I know not what not to do when planning for a meeting. Okay. Overestimate. So what I'm seeing in just these couple of comments is, again, when something goes wrong, if you make that quick switch in your mind, and it's not going to happen immediately, but it's a habit that you build, and you start to see, what do I learn from this? What is the learning in this? Getting in that habit is going to help it become more second nature, so it affects you less. Okay, and then with the negative feedback, this feedback could help elevate my business. See, or you know what they say, there's no bad press. Now more people know about my business than they did. What's the opportunity here? See it as a survey and begin to implement new ways to gain constructive feedback. Now I know what I need to improve. Great, great, great. So in the interest of time, I won't ask you all to answer all of these questions in the chat, but I want you to think about these, and I'll just ask one of them at a time. And this is some of the practice that you can get into the habit of to shifting your mindset and working more on a growth mindset. So I want you to observe for yourself how you feel when you make a mistake and why. Where do you feel it? You can put in the chat if you want. How do you think other people view you? How do they see you when you make a mistake? Have I ever discovered something new from making a mistake? Have I ever felt proud when making a mistake? Has making a mistake ever made me think more deeply about a problem? So definitely these are some questions that I want you to reflect on and be thinking about, because often in that moment when you're going through it, if you observe, when I've made mistakes, sometimes it's an outer body experience. Like I said, I've wept when I've lost contracts or when I did something wrong. I've said every negative thing about myself to myself that I could. And I realized that that was the wrong reaction. And the more I got in the habit of getting a sense of, okay, I made a mistake, my heart is beating, or I'm feeling my blood pressure rise, I'm feeling myself feeling really anxious. Like, you actually can sometimes feel it in your body. And the more I become observant of that, then I start to think, well, now wait, I see myself reacting. How am I going to deal with this reaction? Becomes really, really important. So as you work on developing a growth mindset, there are a couple things that I want you to be thinking about. And here are some of the habits that you can start to build. One, creating new beliefs. So you want to make sure that you fundamentally believe in yourself, in your skills, in your abilities, but most importantly, in the fact that you can change. We're not stagnant beings. We are creatures who make progress. So if you've made a mistake and you've done something wrong, you have the opportunity to course correct at any moment. And so when you create that new belief, you don't stay stuck in that mistake. It helps you to see failure really as an opportunity to learn and grow, as many of you have called out. You also want to deepen your self-awareness. So really know, and this can be through working with a coach, this can be through taking online assessments like Enneagram. There's also another one that we use often with clients, the positive intelligence assessments, looking at your saboteurs. What are your saboteurs as well? So learn as much about yourself as you can. Make yourself your own project. And this will help how you show up as a leader in a number of ways, because if you're really clear on who you are, you also are clear on how you lead other people. And this helps you working on that growth mindset. You want to continue to be curious. One of our values is be coachable, be curious. Those are two of our values at our company. And it's just committing to lifelong learning. There's always more to grow. Again, we're not stagnant. Seek out challenges, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So before, when I used to weep, when I got no's from potential clients, I recognized I also just wasn't pitching enough. Okay. Now we have even started a tracker of the size financially and how many pitches we send out every quarter. And those numbers blow my mind because they're so much greater than they were for almost the whole first 3 years of business. Now we're doing that in pitches a quarter, and we don't get everyone, but we get some of them. And guess what? It's adding to the bottom line. So the more you seek out new challenges, the more you have opportunities, and the more shots you take, then yeah, you're not going to hit everyone, and that's okay, but you're taking more shots. And then you want to also focus on your purpose, what's driving you. And finally, you want to reward actions, not traits. So you're not celebrating that you are smart, which you are, is amazing, or you're not celebrating one or two things about your personality. What instead you want to celebrate is, yesterday was a hard day, but I still woke up and I showed up today. My community maybe gave me negative feedback online, but guess what? I didn't delete my account, and I'm still here, and I'm still showing up for the community and bouncing back and showing that we're going to have a path forward. So you want to reward yourself for taking actions that go towards your growth. Okay, so I've shared quite a lot, and we are, Jackie put in the chat if Rakia has joined us yet, we are at the tail end. So I want to make sure we move towards our fireside chat because we have a lot of interesting things to ask Rakia. Yes, Rakia is here. Okay, great. So I'm going to just close out. I talk about mindset again today. I just posted this on my story on Instagram, but I heard from a speaker today, and one of the things she said that really stood out to me is we're all coming to the table with trauma, and we do have to honor that. We do have to work on that, but we also have to honor our resilience because we're still here. Our businesses are still operating. One of you said in the very beginning of the chat, a quote that I love, like, I didn't quit. I've had hard times, but I haven't quit. So here are just a couple of affirmations that I want to pose to you. And most importantly, the one I say just about every day, as I've entitled this presentation, is leaders do hard things. Running a business isn't easy. I could have started this off with tons of stats of what that landscape looks like, particularly for us as Black and Brown founders. But we are capable of doing things that are hard, and that's why we're still here. So I want to say that and encourage you to take one action in the next couple of weeks until it becomes a habit to care for yourself and making sure that you're managing burnout as a founder. Go ahead and put in the chat, whether it's something I shared or something one of your community members shared in the chat, what's one action you're going to take? And as those are coming in, we do have the amazing Rakia Finley with us. Go ahead, put those in the chat. I won't turn it over to Rakia till I see something, because we got to hold each other accountable. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so as those are coming in, I do want to read Rakia's bio and tell you about the next segment of our discussion for the next 45 minutes. Get your questions ready. Okay. Ooh, okay, wait. I see some mental time, taking a vacation next month. Yes, I'm seeing a lot more business owners do sabbaticals through the summer, breaks from 12 to 2. One of the things I did to hold myself accountable was I got a dog. I have to walk every day because I'm not letting him go in my house. So that keeps me accountable. Managing my CEO time better, great. Cultivating the life you want, no matter how hard. Yes, communicating more with your team, delegating those tasks, very important. Okay, keep those coming in. And now I want to take a second to tell you a little about Rakia. As I mentioned, I first heard Rakia speak last year in Martha's Vineyard, and she was just such a dynamic and powerful speaker and someone who has an incredible story that really should be shouted from the mountaintops. She is the founding partner at Copper and Vine Studio, and she's an American executive, a software executive. She's a women in tech leader, a full stack developer, a Salesforce MVP, a mother, a private investor, and a philanthropist. So I bet Rakia has quite a lot of experiences with managing burnout herself, but she has thrived through it all. She is best known for her work with the Obama administration on their Girls in STEM initiative, and she continues to develop innovative technology solutions and community initiatives that promote diversity in STEM for girls of color. In 2018, Rakia founded Copper and Vine Studio, which is a creative solutions corporation in the business of reimagining to blend Rakia's passions, inventing award-winning technologies, making companies at scale, and building brands that produce results. She has also emerged as an entrepreneur's dream come true. So I know this is the part many of you are hungry for, designing products for founders that average over 27 million in an acquisition. After she got her Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, Education Analysis, she went on to earn her Master's in Business Administration. She's done extensive work for nonprofits, delivering over 500 custom digital database solutions to organizations. She is also the founders of Pastries and Champagne, a nonprofit that inspires young women and encourages an open dialogue of the stories of women and their journey to self-discovery and success. So, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing and let Rakia say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. How is everyone? Angelina, thank you so much for having me. Hi, it's nice to see everybody.
It's so good to see you. And Rakia, I know, but if you feel comfortable, tell us where you're joining from.
I am currently in Paris. So it's 9:44 here. But you know, what am my body is still on New York time because it has to be. I will be in London on Saturday if anybody wants to do brunch. And I just came back from Tuscany.
Yes, I love it. I knew you were in Europe. See, I didn't even know where. I thought you might still be in Italy, but that is the commitment that Rakia had to being with all of you today. So just want to thank you. Now, Rakia, I know you joined at the tail end of the presentation, and we were talking about burnout, CEO burnout, and some of the things that leaders deal with and how we can better care for ourselves. Before we dive into your story, can you just give us one tip of how you have managed some of the challenges of leadership throughout the years?
Yes, I was excited to hear you talk about what burnout is. And I think there's something very interesting as business owners and leaders and entrepreneurs that we get to change perspectives on. And sometimes I always liken the idea of burnout to if you ever watch a track star, right? A track star knows when they start their 100-meter dash that they plan to give all of themselves. And at no point does anyone get too concerned when they see that track star not only win, but completely fall out. And they give them time to recover and to stand back up. And usually that track star knows that they might have long jump after. So sometimes as entrepreneurs, it's easy to say, I have burnout. But to your point, you talked earlier also about just giving yourself gratitude and giving and really honoring your task. Sometimes it takes you to say, was it burnout or did I just finish a 100-meter dash? Mm. And if you just finish a 100-meter dash, then what you need to focus on is recovery and measurement and assessment. If you finish a 100-meter dash and you don't want to run anymore, then you probably weren't a track star. So there's a different perspective of what actually is draining you. But if you are in a particular scenario where you're pitching for an entire quarter and you're focused on the growth of your product, and after it, you want to take a nap for 2 days, then that is you identifying how you recover, right? But if you then wake up and say, I don't want to pitch anymore, then that may have not been your product. So it's a bit of a perspective shift.
Incredible. Wow. 2 minutes in and you already have us in the chat saying you are dropping gems. Thank you for that. I love the metaphor. So I really appreciate that. So I want to talk a little bit about Copper and Vine first. Can you tell us a little bit about Copper and Vine and what led you to starting this company?
Yes. So Copper and Vine, I like to say, is my legacy company. And I'm sure we can talk about what that means in a different fireside chat. But what Copper and Vine is an intention for us to build innovation in this world that doesn't exist. So I believe that no matter what you do, whether it is a business for profit or non, that there should be an underlying decision of the impact you will have within a community or this world. And if that's the case, then Copper and Vine is determined to drive innovation forward as this world as we know it, right? There's still so much we get to create. So what we do is we help founders and entrepreneurs and visionaries and thought leaders like the people on this call build their products and their ideas and place them in the market. And we do that with some very particular principles. One, we build custom. We believe that innovation does need to start with people being willing to build from scratch again. And that means getting it wrong deeply. And you talked about that so perfectly, Angelina. What Copper and Vine also does is support those visionaries in understanding the business model. So we also build the business model behind the products that we engineer, design, develop, and launch on their behalf. And during that time, we know that we're building something very big. We intentionally, our tagline is we build big ideas. And with that, we train that visionary on how to run that company. And we also support them as their CTO of record, their Chief Technology Officer of record, to continue to engineer and build their product. So sometimes it looks like, hey, Rakia, I have an app idea, and then I get to sit with you for 2 hours and tell you how that app idea is probably a deep and powerful innovation that is meant to be proprietary technology or some sense of innovation that exists in the market, or might even change consumerism as we know it. And then I'll try to convince you that that small idea is worth a lot of money and that we should build it. And then I build it.
And you build it, and you are not just convincing them that it's worth a lot of money, you're proving it, right? We read in your bio that founders are getting an average of 27 million acquisition. So can you talk about what it means to you to be seen as an advocate for entrepreneurship, convincing maybe those timid founders who are afraid of their big ideas to move forward, and how do you get them to that point?
Absolutely. Business ownership and the choice of creating product is simply you very much so dedicating to solving a problem. And anyone that is attempting to create something without truly solving a problem, in my opinion, is not a viable company under any regard. So if you show me a company that's thriving, that you wonder why, Rakia, every day does Wonder Bread do so much, right? Why, no matter what, can't we seem to make Q-tip not a $1 billion consumer valuation? And I would come back at you and say, well, it's solving a problem that no one has decided to dedicate to solve. So what makes a viable business and product is a deep problem solved. And the mastery of business success is just being dedicated to the solution. And then from that solution, being very passionate about the people that get to be affected by that solution, which in turn are your customers. But it starts with just really knowing that if you're saying in exchange for currency, I am going to produce a level of better for you, and the cost of that better is this, the return for that better I prefer be this, then the math, I love this new term, the math starts mathing. So that's my opinion.
That's incredible. And it has me also thinking about some of the solutions that we pose for CEO burnout and recognizing that part of it is that belief system. A lot of us as founders coming from historically excluded communities, sometimes our belief system is set up in a way that it becomes hard to see ourselves as capable of solving these big problems. How do you help entrepreneurs remedy that?
So I think sometimes it's just really unlocking some things. And actually, I want to note in the chat, thank you, Leona. Copper and Vine's website is down. We're doing a massive website overhaul right now because we just built and launched something cool. So yes, our website is down. If you do want to get in contact with us, you can just go to Rakia, RAKIA.io. But thank you. The downside to European time. But how we get through entrepreneurs really just being in blockers, right? Really, it starts with unpacking. It goes back to being solution based. So if an entrepreneur is struggling with finding customers, I'm going to unpack and audit what customers they've had successes with. And then we're going to truly talk about the problem that they're solving and who is having that problem. I see a big issue with a lot of founders and startups sometimes is there is such a deep vision amongst who is going to buy your product. And we tell you to. People like me, your creators, your developers, your designers will say, well, tell me your user, tell me your customer. And will cause you to paint this picture, usually for a brand story or for you to get in a relationship. But unfortunately, what can happen is we're then going to pigeonhole this idea of who your customer or what your customer looks like. And that's unfair. If we take the time to just see it again as a solution and say, well, demographically, I'm a database engineer by trade. So demographically, if we look at data, here are the communities, cultures, economic stories that would benefit from this problem being solved. And we're going to remove what they might look like or where they might actually live, right? We're going to talk more about here's how they prefer to access your solution. And the story of customer gets to be unpacked in a more honest way. What that small exercise then does, we have a number of clients like this, where who you were marketing to, who you were envisioning, who you were even positioning yourself on behalf of was never going to be your key customer. So an emphasis on key customer, not just customer. So yes, anyone can be your customer. Your mother can be your customer. But your key customer is the actual person who, without any utilization of your own, ran to your door and said, you are my problem solver. Right? Your key customer is the person that when their ear itches, you're the first brand that they think of. That's your key customer. So when you've mastered that, well, then that unlocks a world of economics for you. Because I guarantee you, your key customer is international. We do a lot of international work, and we do a lot of work convincing people that their idea must be international. So how we do that is we get really in alignment with the demographic understanding of a key customer. But it starts with unpacking what the blocker is for an entrepreneur, unblocking what the problem is for someone that's trying to get to another level in their company. Because I guarantee you, it's just something that you haven't tried yet.
Oh, there's so much there. And what I'm also hearing is when entrepreneurs get to work with you, they're getting that CTO and that software development experience, but also true strategic consulting, which so many of us really need as we're seeking to scale and grow. Okay, so when you talk about, you alluded to it in the very beginning, but Copper and Vine is not your first company. You had a company previously and sold it. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and some of the lessons that you learned from that experience?
Yeah, they were all bad ones. I failed a lot. You talked a lot about that in the beginning. I started my first company when I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore, entering into my sophomore year of college. I had one skill, and that was building databases. And I had one problem that I wanted to solve, and that was that at that time, young kids in inner cities weren't getting properly service cared for when it came to public care. One example of that was my very first client was an orphanage. And at that time, I was interning at that orphanage, and I wasn't sure how I was going to pay for my sophomore year of college. I went to the executive director and I said, hey, how much would you pay me to work full time here? And the executive director said, our internship around 20, thousand a year. It'd take you a year to earn it. I said, okay. My student tuition was more than that. I said, well, how much would you pay me if I built a database that would turn all the paper that you have of every child in this facility into a digital system? And it was 2003. The concept of a database or anything on a computer was something that was only privy to libraries or government systems. So the idea that a small nonprofit orphanage could have a digital solution was a problem worth solving. And I did not have a lot of skills, but I had one that I cared deeply about, and I cared a lot about the problem I would solve in return. And I truly cared for my customer. So because of that, I built a really cool, still to this day, very cool database for that orphanage. And at the time, I also implemented for the first time an instant messaging system amongst the entire facility. Today, that seems like very simple things. Most people on this call could probably do what I did in 2003. And in that turn, she asked me, well, how much would you charge me to build it? And I only had one number, my college tuition. And that's the number I told her. She agreed to pay me that in 2 payments. And I spent my summer building that database for that orphanage. I did that a number of times, and I was one of the first agencies, let alone female agencies, let alone Black female agencies, that was a digital database development firm in 2003 in the Northeast region. I did not take over the world. I was not a billionaire. I did not have clients all over the world, right? Nothing was real cool about what I did. If I told you what I did now, today, you would think my job would be very boring. I sat in a lot of cubicles, and I built a lot of really cool things for companies. But because I did it so many times, I got better at it, better and fast and better than my counterparts. And that led us to have just really great case studies. We were willing to build things that other people didn't. That led me to sell that agency to a larger agency that ended up taking our clientele. They also ended up licensing the then established operation procedures that we had created to create those databases because we had to. And that was the first time that I learned about licensing my thought as a business owner. And what else did they do? They put me on their board for the first time. So at the age of 23, I had established and sold my first company simply from doing the one thing I was just good at and loved.
Okay, so I want to just linger here for a second before I move into some of the other questions about your investments, because sometimes when we build things, we can be so attached to them that the idea, and part of what we wanted to talk to you about today is exits and what do exits look like for us as founders. It can be really scary to think of, do I let this go? How do I know when is the right time to let this go? You've had a couple of exits and you've helped a lot of entrepreneurs achieve their exits as well. Can you share some of your thinking on there of knowing when you know when the time is right to close that chapter and move on to the next one?
I don't believe that I have an answer on when it's right to close a chapter. When it's right to close a chapter is a personal decision that you have to decide. But I will say that what we ask every one of our clients when we start something, we say, well, what does success look like? Where is this going? Before we put line to code, before we architect anything, before I get to use my brain, I love using my brain, Angelina. Before we get to do any of it, what does success look like to you? And usually we'll hear a level of success that we'll try to stretch them to another level just to see, just to try. But what does success really look like? So what I would ask or challenge every single person on this really would be, if you have not already, imagine when it's all been done. You've done all the things. They've said your name all the times you thought they would. You've gotten all the clients, you've had all the customers, everything that you are attempting and hoping for and envisioning has been complete. I have a bit of a tip for you. If you can see it, it's possible. So imagine it done. What does it look like? What are you doing after it? Do you still go to work? Are you still managing that team? Are you off in Barbados somewhere? Are you here with me in Paris? Because I'm going to brunch tomorrow. Decide what you will be when it's complete before you begin the investment, because everything you are doing in a business is an investment. So believe that that investment is worth a return, right? And hopefully a valuable one, because all that time and effort and passion you place into it. Once you get clear on what success looks like, that becomes your KPI, the very first one you should always have. So everything that you are doing should be progressing towards that success measure, right? And it helps you make more definitive decisions as a business owner, because the simple question then becomes, does this align to my success metric? It doesn't, right? Does this get me closer to where I've already told myself before I began this that I want it to go? If it doesn't, then you get to give a graceful no. So yes, did I answer your question?
Powerful. And I really love that framework. It brought to mind one time I was chatting with Rich Dennis in a moment of CEO burnout. I was feeling just completely overwhelmed and I had so much on my plate. And I said, I feel like I've been operating, that 100-meter dash. I felt like I had been doing it for over 5 years and just feeling so tired. And he said to me, he's like, Angelina, how long you think I did it before I exited to Unilever? And I was like, 10, 15. He was like, try 30. And when you talk about it being a personal decision, I think that's really good for all of us in the room to recognize, but also that the exit shouldn't be based upon that feeling of personal burnout. Burnout is something that we should be solving for, but instead our exit should really be focused on our visions of success and something that we're planning for. So I do appreciate that. Please start putting your questions in the chat. I'm going to call out some of the questions in just a second that were asked. I do want to say that everyone wishes that they were in Paris or London to have brunch with you. But before we move into some of the questions in the chat and go on, keep dropping in. You, in addition to having experienced several exits, helped others have different exits, you also are an investor yourself. So you're thinking about how to set people up to even get to that place and using your own funds to do that. So many people here in this room are in the Black Ambition Prize community because funding is something that we're interested in. As a serial investor, can you talk about what you're looking for in terms of a return on your investment, and how do you make the decisions about who you invest in?
Absolutely. And you were so amazing at this as well. So a lot of what I'm going to say kudos to you as an example to doing this well. So it's very interesting, especially now as investment and the investment journey and seed rounds. These aren't far-fetched things. Learning them, right, might feel new, but the concept of them have been around now for a while. And because of that, there's some basic principles that have been utilized more and some overlooked. One thing that we hear a lot with investment is we tend to say, well, they want to love your story. Make sure you have a great story. Make sure when you go, they're investing into you as an entrepreneur. And some of that is true. But I think that because of that rhetoric, we have overlooked the power of having a beautiful business model. We have overlooked the strategy of having a fantastic product roadmap, right? So what I'd love to see in entrepreneurs, and technically the only ones I do invest in are ones that have come to me beyond their story. So they've come and identified how long it will be for them to have a product in market. They will show me their marketing metrics and why they want the investment that they want, and where every penny is going to go to bring me back my return. So I like entrepreneurs that are willing to pull up an Excel spreadsheet, right? So yes, have a fantastic pitch deck. Also still have a 50-page business plan that has been R&D'd and given a risk assessment for. Show me that you will be the CEO that you're asking me to make you, at least for the first year. I have no choice. So show me how you'll run this company. Tell me the businesses or the positions you'll hire within your first year. Show me that you wrote their job descriptions. So I like a well-planned entrepreneur. I tend to like someone that looks like that they are anticipating success, not praying for it. But you should do both.
Ooh, that was a word. Ooh, I like that. That's the tweetable thing. You want to be preparing for success, anticipating it, not just praying for it. Okay. Faith without works is dead. That's great, Rakia. Thank you. We heard you. Yes, heard in the chat. Okay, the questions in the chat are coming in. They're so good. I want to get to them, but I have to ask this question since you honed in on the business plan. What is an area that you see a lot of entrepreneurs not giving enough attention to? Any overlooked components that you think there should be more focus on?
Your technology, your digital transformation. That is the most important thing. And if you have not taken the time to really identify what you will need financially or systematically or whatever it may be, figure out what it is to have a robust technology system. I have to just, I'm going to put I look forward to the questions, but I want to be very clear on this statement that was a fantastic question. When we look at ownership in business, it is easy to simply look at our industry, and you should. But when we truly look at who hones in on your market, so if anyone is in this industry and you are in clothing, right? Yes, you should care about ateliers in the world. You should care about the people who are making your clothes. But at some point, you need to look at import and export. At some point, you need to get more vast in who owns your textile, correct? When we look at technology, and you look at all the systems that you all will invest in to make sure that your POS system works, your employee system works, to make sure that your HR department works, all the technology systems you will eventually invest in when your business is successful. Ask yourself, have you looked at the ownership of the data that you will be paying to cloud and hold? Have you looked at who will own someone immediately said, my website is down. You're right, because DNS systems are unfair. Right? I am at the mercy at a DNS reroute at this very moment. No matter how professional I am, if my website does not come up in the next 24 hours, you might think everything I said was a lie. Identify all you are doing in your technology lens and find a way to have a CTO of some kind in your existence that can identify how you can hone in on that market, how you can hone in on that ownership. Should we own our own server base? Should we license the technology that we had to build? Should we build our own POS system? What are our options for success in the concept of technology?
Whew. Oh, I'm so glad we're recording this because I wouldn't just be taking notes on everything you're saying. I'm going to pause for my questions because I do see some really powerful ones in the chat. And I want to start with this one from Miko. She says, or they say, Rakia, you said you failed a lot, but it looks like the first thing you did hit it out the park. Can you expand? Were there really any failures? Are you pulling our chain?
I spent way too much money. I'll tell you all. I spent way too much money. And I could have been, sometimes when success happens quickly, right? We think that it's going to happen. We had down seasons. Technology was not always cool. So it was not always easy to convince people to build tech. So we scaled the professional way to say it is we scaled too fast, right? But it's, the honesty is from a CEO's perspective, from the person that gets to decide on the budget, you spent too much money. So it was definitely that. I spent a lot more time where I should have been more strategic in my growth, just kind of maximizing on the growth. I always call it sales lulls. I always look at my team and I say, okay, where's the lull here? Because sometimes you start succeeding. So what, we get those sales, we got this deal, we're going to celebrate, we're doing great, let's go on vacation. Well, let's take a nap, right? And we all of a sudden, you're like, oh, our sales aren't going like they were supposed to. And then you have to rev up and rev up and rev up and 100-meter sprint, right? That was believing in the ebb and flow, right? That's not correct. That's not what CEOs do, right? You get to identify a level and pace for your team. I didn't create enough vision, right? So a vision is something that gets to go beyond you. I would always go into a lot of things and only be able to talk to the vision with me included. But that's a very far-sighted belief, right? What if I get sick? What if I actually do want to go on vacation? So I failed a lot simply because I would be looking at a team that didn't quite know the big vision, the big idea. So I had to learn how to talk beyond myself, which had a lot of personal transformation and required a lot of ego to get beyond. I treated everything like it was mine, right? I cared so much about my ideas, and to believe my experience, it was a scarcity mindset. So I taught myself that, I built this really cool thing and only I can hold it or lead it or make it or do whatever. But no, it was just a product. It was just a toy that I was trying to share with the world. So actually, let me go into that energy. But number one, I spent too much money. So whoever here spends too much money, stop.
That's really powerful. And most of the following questions I see in the chat are technical ones. So I want to just sit with the personal side for a second. As a leader, as a business owner, sometimes it can become very attached to our identity. And when things shift or we're experiencing those failures, it can be really challenging. So can you just talk about some of those shifts in belief system and how you worked on seeing yourself outside of the things that you've created? And then we'll dive into the technical questions, I promise.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to make this one short. Purpose, right? I truly believe in the power of skill set. You were given a skill set for a reason. You were here for a reason. So the journey is really figuring out why you're here and having a blast figuring that out. If that happens to lead you in a direction of business, then enjoy that, right? But really, you should be functioning from what it is that you truly are made of. When I talk to children a lot about entrepreneurship, and something I say to them a lot is, yes, do all the cool ideas and be willing to fail, but no matter what, have a skill that no one can take from you. Because a great CEO and a great entrepreneur is someone that understands the power of honing in on a skill, maximizing on a skill, and making money on behalf of the skill. So it is just something about learning how to master that, learning how to replicate a skill set, learning how to turn your skill set into process, sharing that skill set. But it starts with just a belief that, and I have a personal belief of I was made for great things. So let me figure out how great I can be.
Another affirmation to put on my mirror. Okay, so let's do some of the technical questions because these are incredibly important. So if we can do sort of a rapid fire on some of these, how did you know to license after the first company that you were working with offered to acquire the business? So just from a strategy standpoint, if you could walk us through that.
Anything that is being asked, someone is asking if they can simply replicate exactly what you did, is licensable. If you ask me to replicate, if you hear the words, I think we could use this at license. Next question.
From Leona, I have been blessed to have gotten interest from 3 third parties that want to invest in my company, which is pre-launch. What's your advice for someone in my position? How do I get ready for investment?
Term sheets, a great accountant, fantastic lawyer, a lot of personal mental care, right? Slow mind, decision-making mind, quiet the noise in your life, drink lots of water.
Oh, good. And this is another one on licensing. How would you go about evaluation for licensing technology to a publicly traded company?
Monthly per person, times the expected growth number of your marketing and operations. You're going to take that number. That's going to be your margin assumption. I would triple that by 3 at least. And that's going to be your first evaluation assumption for yourself. Somebody will tell you different after.
Got it. For founders that are more on the business versus the technical side, what recommendations can you share for how to build enough on your own so that you can attract a technical of Rakia's caliber for a CTO role?
This is a hard answer because I'm going to be truthful. If you are not skilled at building the thing, then explain the thing you're trying to build in the way that you're skilled to explain it and hand it over to who needs to build it. If you have a vision for your dream house, you aren't going to pick up carpentry. So just because you have the world-class app idea does not mean that you are meant to be a developer. It means you're meant to hire the person that is skilled to build the world-class app idea.
Absolutely.
You're a CEO, right? Like, yeah, be a CEO. So that means find someone like me or me, and I'd rather you ask the question of, what does it take, right, to get this built by you or for you, right? But find the person who can do the thing that needs it. Find your carpenter.
Okay, so that brings us to our next question, which is what stage of company would you consider to be a good fit for Copper and Vine? And to the extent that you feel comfortable, even if it's not with Copper and Vine, how much should founders be budgeting for these sorts of solutions?
Absolutely. As a business owner, within your first year, your technology operations is going to be within $1,500 a month anyway. That's just if you use third-party solutions, all the people that were smart enough to license. One, to answer the question of the stages that companies that we work with all stages of companies. We have packages for all. We work from ideation to launch. So we have levels of services for all. So we literally will get you from ideation, and we'll ideate with you on your behalf. We'll design those ideations on your behalf. We will then, if you tell us to develop and engineer that product that you ideated and designed, we'll patent it, trademark it, and launch it on your behalf. So if you're at any stage of that journey, we are skilled to do so. We're an all Black female firm, led by an all Black female, all senior level engineers that have been building products and engineering the work we've done for everyone's over 5 years of experience, or to 10 is safe to say. And so that's that. And as far as the investment of it, what it looks like is a faster trajectory. I'll say to the person that asked that question, you're asking the wrong questions. How fast do you want to get to market? If you want to get to market within this year, we should be on the phone tomorrow. And we can be rakia.io, or Angelina, you're welcome to give everyone my email address. But if you are willing to take this day by day, and that KPI has a longer concept to it, then it might look like finding a CTO or finding a co-founder that has that skill set, or putting yourself in that particular position. But people come to us because they want to get a great idea built well and built fast, and built with great expertise. And yes, I hear a lot of, are you still in DC? Yes, we are based in Washington, DC. We do work all over the globe, which is why I travel. But yes, reach out to me, and I'm always here to be a resource.
Absolutely. This is incredible. Please we have a couple more minutes for questions, so keep your questions coming. I have one, and then I'll turn it back over to the chat for questions. When we are discussing investors, we often talk a lot about what it takes to obtain them, but not often a lot of conversation about how to manage them. So do you have any tips for business owners on how to navigate their relationships with their investors?
That's a great question. It's the most important thing you will do as someone that chooses to run a venturing company, is your relationships. And I'll be honest, this was something I had to get across. If no one knows, if no one's noticed, I'm a very straight talker. And sometimes that doesn't build relationship very well. And I had to learn that relationships are key to building team. And really, an investor partnership is a team partnership, right? It's not, I'm just so happy to give you money. It's, I believe that I'm gonna get this money back with a little bit more in it, right? So my relationship with you has already been, whether it's ruthless or not, or, but my relationship with you has already been established as, I believe in you enough to return this money back to me in return. So what I find sometimes that startups or founders do is they forget about that initial relationship of a funder. That initial relationship with the funder was your cheerleader. It was the first person that said, okay, I think we can do something here. But in the rigors of starting a company or maybe failing once or twice, and that investor holding you accountable, it's easy to forget that relationship. So the powerful thing about being in a more authentic relationship with your funders, and by authentic, I mean really honest, is you always being an establishment of, you're the first person that actually rooted me on. How would you treat the first person that ever rooted you on? Right? You're the first person that actually told me that you believe that I would reach this number of evaluation. You believe in me enough for that, whatever that number said on that term sheet. Let me give you the relationship of someone that actually believes in me to that value. And, just have really good dinners and look them in the eye and tell them where you failed. And here's the beautiful thing, ask them their advice. And if they didn't give it to you, then they really didn't care about their investment, because you're going to hear my ideas, right? Because there's a chance that I might not only support getting that return, but I might double that return simply off of my expertise. So see that relationship as a powerful one. I love all of my board members, all of my advisors. We do not always agree. Some of them I do wish did not have my personal cell phone number, but I still read the text messages, and I take their honest truths, because I know at the helm of it, they are anticipating my growth and success.
Absolutely. And we are just a few minutes away from closing. So please do, if you have any last questions, put them in the chat. Rakia, I do believe in giving people their flowers. So I want to just tell you that so many folks are in the chat saying, I am so glad I attended this. I am your biggest fan, that you are responsive, brilliant, strategic mind. Cannot wait to work with you. When is the replay available? Okay, so we aren't even done. Please drop in your last few questions. I have another one in the chat that was technical related, so I want to pull that back up. It was trying to figure out, what is your advice on equity distribution? And can you talk about how much should you be talking about equity for seed investments with VCs?
Should you be talking about equity with seed investments with VCs?
Can you talk about how much equity for seed investment for a VC? I'm just rereading.
Okay. Wait, say it again. How much seed investment? Okay. Well, I'll speak to this. I'll try to, yes. So one, it starts with the goal. What's the goal? So if you say, Rakia, the goal is this really cool idea. I just want to make all the money possible on it and live a very, very happy life, right? That's one goal. You could say, Rakia, I love this idea. I want to always have a piece of it because I believe it could be legacy, or, what another goal. And then you might say, I want this to always be in my family forever, right? Like this is a different thing. That's another. Those are different seed equity strategies. Start with your end goal. Also, do you have a co-founder? Did you have a founding team? Did you have a founding dev team? What did you promise people in the beginning? All of that's got to be written down before we start talking seed. So even, the half truths of if I make it, whoever gave you that $100 to get the LLC, whatever it is, write all of that down pre-seed. Really figure out how much equity, because there's some social equity you gave to get here. Write down your social equity. Get clear on what that personal evaluation is. How much equity do you really have first? Seed, you're still talking term. You still should be talking term sheet. This is a big mistake that a lot of people make. Friends and family round, seed round, still term sheets, even if you make it yourself. So if that's the case, that's fine, but have an evaluation for yourself. Always clock in on your equity. There's a fantastic company by the name of Gust, G-U-S-T. I forgot their cost, but for a monthly charge, you can actually, they'll manage your entire equity term sheet, all of it, even pre-seed. It's a fantastic platform. And they do a number of other services as well. But you should always have that. then from there, those 3 goals, I'll say, if you say, hey, Rakia, for the rest of my life, then you really only got about a 20% cap. Before anything you do after that, you should be having a legal discussion before and getting a honest evaluation. And then with that 20% cap, if you're in seed, then you need to be functionally trying to actually just get to round. You need to get out of seed as fast as possible so you can get a high enough evaluation in your first round to make that 80% of equity that hopefully you have make something. And then you need to be doing a strategy to go public, and then and then you buy the yacht. Round 2. So don't go. Am I out of time?
No. We're almost there, but you go, please.
Okay, cut me off if I'm doing too much. And then second one is I want to own some of this, right? That's a different strategy. So from there, depending on the business model, that one's a little bit more strategic. We do a number of audits and assessments around your growth strategy. We also talk about the proprietary technology that we're building. So that one's a bit trickier. But worst case scenario, I'm going to probably give you 40% to give away, but you're going to use most of that, because hopefully you're talking product or business model. You're going to use most of that off founding board. So you're probably still going to end up with a good, by seed, I wouldn't want to see anything past 5% really being thrown away. Given during the seed round. Still, we got to get you to your initial round because we still got to up your evaluation. So you might all see my trend here. And then eventually, let's say, Rakia, I don't care what happens to this. I just think this is a good idea. I'm willing to do the investment. We'll do an assessment on what the return would be. You'll have from there an option of how much relationship do you want to create. You might say none. We'll identify an end market strategy that looks like a disruption to give you an acquisition, and you'll be out of there within 6 months of launch. So it just depends on what success looks like.
Okay, this is great. And I know we're getting very close to the close. We want to honor your time so you can go off and enjoy Paris as well. Just 2 really quick lightning round questions. Someone did ask, and we got great feedback from Naomi. Do we need to do NDAs for angel investors? Any worries about infringement? Any thoughts on that quickly?
If you've done nothing, do an NDA. If you got something under your belt, focus on getting relationship and getting a check. But if you've done nothing, if it's just still a conversation, then yeah, get an NDA. But if you have product, build your company.
And similar question, how much financial information should be shared with investors, with potential investors?
Your plan, not your purpose. So your plan of what is the KPI plan of success that matches the evaluation that I'm asking for. Here is what we will do. If we get this investment, here is what we financially will do. And then from there, if you are in business, you then get to say, here's what we've done this quarter, last quarter, however long you've been in business, right? And ideally, you'll show that line will be above what you were supposed to be, what you said you were going to do, right? In that. So, yeah.
That is awesome. Now, Rakia, you have poured so much into us. We have folks in the chat saying they are obsessed with you. This clearly could go on for hours and hours, and I wish we had more time. But I want to thank you so much for taking this opportunity to share your knowledge and your insights. We are a community, and not having to tackle these things on our own and having experts like you really does mean so much. So I really want to thank you for that. That being said, what's the best way we can support you?
Oh, that's so nice. Well, one, thank you for doing this, Angelina. You do it so well, and thank you for creating this exceptional community. I'm excited from what gets to be created here. How you can support us, tell people we exist, that they don't have to build it themselves, and it can still be okay. Tell them that there are affordable ways to build your idea. It is by the way of Copper and Vine, and our website will be back up. Tell entrepreneurs that they don't need to be scared of their ideas. Pay that forward. If they need mentorship to do that, rakia.io, and let them know that I exist for them. Most importantly, whatever anyone chooses to do in this world, be very, very good at it and successful. And when you are that, give back to your community. Look back and figure out where you are supposed to be driving impact and change, because we also have a world to change. And if you become really, really successful off of any of my success, always invite me to the party.
Amazing. Excellent. I want to thank Rakia so much. I want to thank Black Ambition Prize for creating this space. And I also want to thank all of you for the work that you are doing. And as Rakia said, creating big, amazing things, and hopefully all with the purpose of us being able to give back more to each other. And our community, we're going to keep this going next quarter in Q4 of the year. Please come back on November 2nd. We'll have other great topics and another great founder to come speak with you all. Thank you everyone so much, and we hope to see you next time.